Like if someone raids me, watch what happens with the scene. It goes nuts.
Yeah.
I have sparks in the front. I got sparks showering from behind. And you'll notice I have it timed up, and I use a thing called Triggerfyre for this. And it's free for like a certain amount of triggers. And then you have to pay like, I think $5 a month for like unlimited through his Patreon.
Really? Okay.
But it's helpful because this type of stuff is wild, man. And the way that I layer this up, it's dope. Yeah. I have to think the same thing that we talked about before. Think about the forest here, the scene that we're setting. Sparks bottom, you'll see I have it highlighted here in my sources. Sparks bottom is higher up in the list of sources than Sparks. Let me get to the very back. Sparks top, because I want Sparks top to be behind the boombox. So you have to think about that depth. And I don't know if you'll be able to notice, but let's let this thing play out. See how the top Sparks left before the bottom ones did? Because technically the floor is still on fire.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you could think that deep. You don't have to. 9 out of 10 people are not going to notice that. But the geeks will. And that's who I'm doing it for. I'm like, I got to get these guys to be, yo, how'd you do that? Oh, man, that was so dope the way that it eased in. And even the way that it left. The sparks at the top kind of curtained up. They didn't fade. They didn't jerk out. They curtained up. And I did use the Luma Wipe curtain effect. Luma Wipe curtain, what was it? Yeah, curtain effect, high transition, and I even adjusted the timing for it so it would go a little bit more elegantly versus just like, whoop, you know, and getting out of the scene. Other things you could do for effects like that, or just to add more to it, is to have like, you know, smoke. That was one of the first effects that I really suggested G-Class to get in.
Yeah, shout out.
It just adds depth.
Shout out to Jace, man.
That cinematic.
That's the same one I had. Well, he said "Tears to me." So the one that you guys redeem on my channel, it's the same one. Get a little smoky in there.
Yep. And you could play with the depth of it by, you know, increasing or decreasing opacity. And as you decrease the opacity, obviously it becomes lighter. But you could even play with that in your filters. You can time filters and have filters increase opacity over time. That gets a little too nerdy, but I mean, whatever you're trying to do with your scenes themselves is absolutely achievable in OBS. It's wild.
So can you explain to us, I want to go, I don't want to be too nerdy, because I can be, but can you explain to us, you mentioned that you had a high transition on the sparks at the top and you timed it. Now, did you do the timing in After Effects, I'm assuming?
No, I did the timing in Triggerfyre.
So, but Triggerfyre is triggering an OBS scene or a source.
Yes. And it's an advanced setting within Triggerfyre. When you go to the advanced options, so you have groups that you can create as well as just regular OBS triggers. In the group setting, I have one set up called Raiders. Within that, I'm triggering 3 different sources: Sparks 2, Sparks, and Boombox. I click on Manage Group. I can actually set the delay for each one. So for example, there's no delay for the Boombox. Boombox will always be there. Sparks 2 will have a 1500 millisecond delay. Sparks 1 will have 2300. So in other words, Sparks 2 is going to fire first. Sparks 2 will fire second. Yeah, you group them up.
I didn't even know you could do that with Triggerfyre.
Yeah, man, this was a game changer. I was like, yo, because look at these ones I got. Well, the bandana boombox is one that I grouped up because it's not just the bandana. I have like, you know, the light smoke that comes out, and there's a little bit of like a noise effect, kind of make it feel more street. De La Daisies, Rewind Selector, Make It Rain's another one where I have the money falling behind the scene. And the reason why I group these, because like Make It Rain's only, it's 2, okay. That's why I have it. I have the boombox overlay also included in the group because technically if it was the trigger, let's say I'm in I'm sorry, it's not the group, it's the scene. Let's say that I'm in the full screen mode on my OBS, right, where it's zoomed in and you see me with just the frame of the TV, and somebody triggers the Bandit or the Make It Rain redemption. If I didn't have the boombox included in here as a group, it would trigger the Make It Rain in a separate scene that nobody's seeing. So what this does when I include my boombox scene, it automatically shifts us, changes the scene to the boombox scene, and then activates the Rain 1, which is the money, 500 milliseconds later. So let's say we're at this scene right here, where it's the frame of the TV. And let's say somebody raids me. And we had that cool effect with the sparks above the boombox and behind the boombox, the sparks on the ground, the smoke's coming in, the emote walls going crazy with the raid symbols or the raid emotes. Nobody would see that if I'm on this scene. And I noticed that in my early days of doing Golden Boombox. I'm like, why the hell am I not getting this? I don't see anybody raiding me. So I went into Triggerfyre. I created the group. I had to include the boombox scene as one of the elements that it triggers. So that way, once someone comes in or redeems something, it forces me back to the boombox scene, and then all the sources are triggered.
Okay, so are you triggering? Yeah, I get you. Question is, are you, for something like that, are you saying that when someone comes in a room and raids you, are you hitting the raid button for the scene and then it triggers, or does the raid trigger it?
The raid triggers it, because within Triggerfyre, what I'm doing is I set up a alias or a command trigger with any time that anybody, or, you know, when someone comes in and raids you, right, it says so-and-so's raiding you.
Yes.
I took the word X is raiding, and I put that in there. So anytime, let's say you could just type. Exactly. Yeah. I was just being clever with that, because otherwise, you know, I'd have to put everybody's name that I expect to raid me to trigger it, right?
Yes.
So I took a keyword.
This is interesting, because I was under the impression that you would need something like Mix It Up, which of course Mix It Up is for like PC users, right? I'm a Mac guy. I don't have a PC, but I was under the impression that you would need something like a Mix It Up or like another bot to do something like that. But you're saying that I can do that in Triggerfyre?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch back to that scene, the Triggerfyre tab real quick, so I could show you exactly how that's done. Yeah, this was a game changer. When I figured this out, I was like, okay, I'm going to pay this dude's Patreon, you know, $5 a month or whatever it is, to get more access to more slots on this, because it's genius, and it's so helpful. Because I do have a, what's the name of the company? I have one of those trigger pads, Elgato, I think is what it's called.
The Stream Deck?
Yeah, I got one of those, but it's limited. You know, you only have so many buttons to hit. So I was like, all right, well, things that I know I don't want to be paying attention to. Let's say I got my back to the screen and the camera, and I'm digging through records, and someone came through and I didn't know. Like, it'll help me with that for sure. But let's get back to this. Groups, Raiders. Click on the edit button. Command name is Raiders. So if I ever do want to trigger it myself, I can just type, you know, !! Raiders. But I click on this little guy right here. Reward name, that's not it. Advanced, that's what it was. You go to the Advanced tab and command keywords right here on the right side. Anytime that somebody types, or which happens naturally in Twitch when someone raids you, it'll say, you know, G-Class rated the channel with X amount of viewers. So I wanted to take the most obvious keywords in that phrase to trigger it, which is rated the channel. How often does anybody voluntarily say rated the channel in a chat? Never. The only time that phrase is said is when somebody rates the channel. So that was my logic there. And then of course it would spark this group where the boombox scene would be triggered. And then once we get to that scene, 1500 milliseconds later, exactly. And
you blew me away. And it makes sense. I never went into the Advanced tab. If I had, I would have seen this. I mean, I've been in there before, but I was like, this is too much going on. I just skimmed it. But it makes sense. Shout out to Arch. Yeah, I know about the reprogramming the MIDI controller. But
you don't want to. I always suggest don't tinker with advanced settings.
Right.
Like you never want to do that. You even said it yourself in some of these tutorials that I've watched before, especially the stream together one. What you want to do, go back to the beginning of the show today, where I said pull out a piece of paper and a pen, or your phone on your notepad, and start to type out or write down the things that you wish you could do. And then once you have that list of things that you can't do on that list, there's always going to be a sub list. Like I can do this, I can do that, I know how to do this. This would be ideal, but I just don't know how to do it. That's when you take that and you go, well, let me take a look at the advanced settings and see if there's anything in there that can help me accomplish this. That's the only time that you want to go off that standard reservation, if you will. And that's what I did.
That's a good way to think about it.
Man,
excuse me. That's a good way to think about it. I didn't even think about it like that. Yeah.
You can get lost, man.
And you know what's interesting? And this is no knock on. Well, you know what? This is a knock. I'm calling you content creators out, okay? Because
knock them.
There is no, before I made a video on Stream Together, which I have to update because they've updated. But before I made that, I didn't see a video on Stream Together. I've never seen a video on this part, like showing what you can do with Triggerfyre advanced settings. I've never seen it, and I'm all over YouTube. Now I could be wrong, but I've never seen it. Like I think something like this is invaluable to show people. Like, okay, you don't need mix it up. You just need to understand the advanced settings and understand delay and command aliases. Like what does all of that mean? That, man, to me, for me right now, this feels like gold. I don't know about anybody else. I don't really care about anybody else. I'm just playing. But this feels like gold.
It is, man. It is. And you'll find bits and pieces of this on YouTube. People suggesting this and that. And what it takes is somebody who is truly focused on solving the problem and not just getting something to make it work. Like I'm MacGyver all day. I tinker with things. I make things work with bubblegum and duct tape. No problem. But at the end of the day, when it's going to be shown to somebody else, and maybe this is part of my career coming into place, having to be a designer for 20-something years in entertainment and sports industry, there's a lot of people out there that judge you based on your product. And granted, they never see me. They just see, the movie, the TV show, the pair of shoes, the baseball cap, the uniform, whatever. But all it takes is one person in the crowd to be like, man, what were they thinking with that? And I feel torn. And I go back to the drawing board. I'm like, that's never going to happen again. Ain't nobody going to call out, the fidelity or the cinematic effect or the depth or the LUT. Like, nah, never going to happen again. And that just becomes one of my things that I get obsessed with. But for the average streamer, yeah, man, save money. This is free. Everything that I'm showing you right now on this Triggerfyre is free until you get to like 50 different triggers. Then